Today we have the pleasure of hosting Sundar Pichai, who's the Senior Vice President at Google Inc., as all of you know, and who's been the force behind Android, Chrome, and Google. And what's a matter of great joy also is that this event comes on the afternoon of the day on which the global launch of the Android mobile from India. This is the first time such a global launch has actually taken place from India. Was done earlier this morning, which you would have all heard about. I'm really excited by the theme of today's talk, today's event, India Goes Mobile First. As a person who's myself spent a long time in designing policies aimed at increasing mobile penetration, increasing broadband connectivity in the country, the developments of today and the theme of today's event is itself a matter of joy and excitement. Today we are in a whole new computing environment, and what we are witnessing is the rapid adoption of the mobile first strategy. And this has particular relevance for India, because the business imperative today that is that designing for mobile first is something that prepares you for explosive growth in a country like India, where you have more than 950 million mobile subscribers and just under 40 million landline users, and that number is shrinking. But additionally, this also brings a culture of innovation as well, as service providers also need to keep pace with the rapid change. I would like to remind you that this is the year in which the number of people accessing the internet through the mobile in India exceeded the number of people accessing it through other means, through computers, through laptops, through landlines, etc. This represents a huge opportunity for young entrepreneurs like yourselves who are here to create mobile solutions that will enable innovation, enhance productivity, bank the unbanked, and make the world even flatter. For India, the mobile has created a phenomenal impact. Access and affordability. The cheapest mobile phone service in the world, which actually drove the penetration from a little over 100 million to almost 1 billion in a little over a decade. That's phenomenal. It's also interesting that the IT industry, which represents India globally, which has become the calling card of India overseas, and is in fact today not only responsible for exports, but for a large part of India's global image. But if you look at the domestic segment, it's the telecom sector which actually made waves. So these are the two sectors which have played a large part in bringing the country where it is today. And as the telecom industry has touched every nook and corner of the country, the future is now, and it's about creating content and solutions on the mobile. From the country's perspective, all of these developments and ideas could not have been better timed. Today, we have a government which has a very public statement of its focus on building a digital India and seeking to digitally empower all the citizens. And the government has very clearly indicated its intention of having a participative approach to governance and even looking at models like crowdsourcing to achieve this objective. There's also a very clear statement that the government would try to make all its services available on demand through technology-enabled platform. And through more and more such initiatives, eventually the digital divide would actually get bridged. And clearly, this whole environment of where we stand in terms of the mobile penetration, in terms of the IT capability, and in terms of the government initiatives and agenda, spell a whole range of opportunities for the IT companies to collaborate. in achieving this objective. NASSCOM, as you know, has also taken up the 10,000 Startups initiative to nurture and identify new age startups and help them to the next level of growth through various programs. The ecosystem in the country is bubbling with energy, and the number of entrepreneurs and the number of startups is accelerating at a phenomenal pace. And today, on behalf of the 10,000 Startups initiative, it is indeed our pleasure to host Sundar Pichai. We are at the cusp of an entrepreneurial revolution, and the startups, many of whom are here in the room today, are creating exciting solutions, not just for India, but indeed for the world. And a lot of the IT industry are creating their solutions for emerging markets from out of India. And most of these are also now increasingly being built first for the mobile. And today there is support both from the government and the corporates to take these startups to the next level. So the convergence of all of these developments, the digital India, the entrepreneurial tsunami, the technology disruptions, and the mobile at the center, represent a huge opportunity and a unique opportunity for India. And my dream has been and is that we will see many disruptive solutions in healthcare, in financial inclusion, in education, in citizen services, and all of them being built through the mobile, fulfilling the vision that the mobile becomes the key instrument of empowerment of every citizen in India. I think that at this point, I cannot afford to stand any further between you and Mr. Sundar Pichai. I know all of you would be eagerly awaiting that interaction, and I would hand over to Ravi to take it to the next stage. But before I hand over to Ravi, a very brief introduction to Sundar. Sundar has spent close to a decade in Google when he took over the reins from Andy Rubin in March last year. And it has been, by all accounts, a fascinating journey for him at the helm ever since. This move has brought Android and Chrome OS to work closely and aim for leadership position in the global market. And notably, amongst his many achievements, this gentleman, whom you will see very shortly, is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, our very own IIT, Stanford, and Wharton, and in many ways is the face of the future. It would therefore be our privilege, and it would be most interesting to hear from him about Google's plans in such a hotly contested market. And without any further ado, I'll now hand it over to Ravi Gururaj, who, as you know, is the chairman of NASSCOM's Product Council and himself an entrepreneur, an angel investor, and a mentor to many startups. But more than anything else, he's been a passionate, tireless, and very articulate spokesman for this entire ecosystem. So let me hand it over to Ravi and invite Sundar.
So thank you, Sundar. Welcome to India. I'd love to hear from you on what you announced today. Let's start off with that. Some very exciting announcements. I think some in the audience haven't heard yet because it is under embargo till late afternoon.
Well, first of all, it's exciting to be here. It's great to see all of you. The energy here is palpably different from the last time I was here almost 18 months ago. Today we announced, and quite a few of the team is here as well, we have been working for a while on an initiative called Android One, and a lot of it was about, Android has already crossed 1 billion users. And if you look at where the PC industry, today there are probably about 1.6 to 1.7 billion PCs in the world, and that's at the end of about 40 years or so since we had the personal computer. Smartphones have already crossed that number. Android alone is over 1 billion users just in a few years, and I think is on track to cross the PC industry pretty soon. So we are truly in the middle of a revolution. And we are all very excited by it. But at the same time, there are some sobering numbers. There's 4 billion people in the world without internet access. and 1 billion of that is in India. And as you mentioned, India has just around 10% of users with smartphone connectivity. So we want to change that. Personally for me, it's been a personal journey too. I've talked about this before. I grew up with, I didn't see my first computer till I went to IIT, and that too very, very, limited amounts of time. And, it had a profound impact on me. And when I look at my kids today, how they learn, they have access to computing at a very young age. And, it radically transforms, and has a deep impact on your life. And so the opportunity to give effectively everyone a smartphone, a connected smartphone with connectivity, I think is one of the most transformative things we can do. And so I think it's a big journey. Many people are doing it, not just Google. But I think for us, it's personally very exciting. And so for Android One was about how do we change the pace at which this is happening. And if you look at the problem, it's a combination of the cost of hardware. It's tough to design a high quality phone at an affordable price point, right? And the industry has been working hard, but one of the things which has always struck me is people in India aspire to the same experience as everyone else. So you can't dilute this experience, you can't change it. They are demanding consumers as well. And so it was very important to deliver an experience which is really high quality at an affordable price so that you can pull more people into this market. The second was around how do you fix the software issues you see around entry-level smartphones. It's inconsistent, they're not secure, you can't keep them updated, etc. And the third was the piece around access to data and connectivity. We've been working on an integrated approach across all of these three with partners, and that's what we announced today. We announced the first set of devices. I've been using these devices for the last couple of months. They're incredible devices. They run the K version of Android, KitKat, and the performance is great. Google backs the software, so we keep them secure. We can update them on an ongoing basis. But at the same time, it's a very capable set of hardware. We build a reference board and source components so that for OEMs, it's more of a turnkey solution. It's easier for them to build these phones, and that's what Android One is about. We announced 3 devices today from Micromax, Carbon, and Spice. They start around 6,400 rupees. I think the team will tell me 6,399, but it's 6,400 rupees and above. But it represents a huge start. To me, what's particularly exciting is, for the first time, it's a big launch for us, but we are doing it first in India. But we announced today we are taking it to Indonesia, Philippines, and South Asia, and we'll take it to more countries based on what we learn here. So it's a big day for us.
Right, and it's going to be a game changer for even our entrepreneurs here because it's going to widen the market tremendously.
Hopefully,
and those countries that you talked about is also a path many Indian startups are taking to go global, right?
Yes.
So it's a huge opportunity, game changer for sure. So tell us a little. You talked about being young. Tell us a little bit about how a boy from Chennai ends up where you are today.
I was young. Yeah.
How did you end up where you are today? It's a meteoric rise, but give us a little bit of a flavor of what you went through and how you got here.
It's pretty nostalgic to come back here and see how much things have changed. I did grow up in Chennai. Spent my first 16 years there till I went to college at Kharagpur. I've always been passionate about computing. I'd done a bunch of different things, but around 2004. I was observing, I'd seen how the internet had taken off, but I was observing from the outside. And Google, was kind of getting into different types of things beyond search. And they'd launched Gmail. For me, it was eye-opening to see how, at the time on the web was mainly about writing content pages and documents and so on, but how you could write a powerful application as like email. And do that all within a browser. Now we look back, we call it the Web 2.0 moment or AJAX, and so seeing that from the outside was remarkable. It truly drove home the power of the internet, how it was going to transform everything we do. So I joined Google then. I've done a bunch of things there since. There's been a great team at every step of the way. But a lot of what I've been doing has been around computing. At some point in time, we decided to build a browser, which is Chrome, and the goal was, seeing what Gmail did in the browser, etc. We realized the web had evolved pretty sharply. It was no longer about content pages; it was about applications. So we truly designed Chrome to be a container to run applications. Sounds arcane, but effectively, most browsers didn't quite handle things like JavaScript well, and so we fundamentally rewrote Chrome to be a platform for modern web applications. It's been very successful since then. We have well over 1 billion users in Chrome, and as part of that, so it's always been about how do you drive computing better, and over the past year and a half or so, I've had the chance to do it across Android as well. So it's been a privilege because I think computing gives you a chance to impact the lives of many people at scale, and Google, fortunate to be at a place where Larry and Sergey, the founders, have a very, very long-term vision in terms of how we should approach problems at scale and use technology to solve that. And so it's been fun to be part of the journey.
Got it. So many in the audience are, developing for both mobile and consumer web, and so I think they've always, obviously viewed Chrome as a potential platform. Now you've got Android. Tell us a little bit about, how you all are thinking about Android. It's probably the most open platform I've ever seen, at least.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I think it's unprecedented in terms of at the scale at which we are trying to run an open platform. Open platform with that many users and that many people who rely on it. I don't think we've reached a place where other computing systems haven't reached before, and so it's an interesting experiment in many ways. It's a huge ecosystem. We are very committed to keeping it open because it works for us, and I think that's the power of an open system is you enable many people to do things. In many cases, we don't even know they're doing it. I give this example of what Micromax did in India. They were working on dual SIM phones on top of Android. It's not like we knew what they were doing. But the power of Android is somebody like Micromax in India could understand the needs of the market, could use Android to drive that type of an innovation and make a big difference. And you've seen evidence of it all around the world. I go to many parts of the world and see the effect Android has had, and we run into people who are transforming things based on Android. It's not just OEMs, developers are beginning to do the same. Today on top of Android, we've seen many successes. Applications like WhatsApp in India, I think has largely been, they're a successful application, but they primarily, were built on Android, and so I think it's a win-win for both us and for a lot of what developers here are doing.
Is there anything where you feel too much diversity, maybe too good a thing?
It is, we firmly believe in the model.
Right.
It's a bit like Indian democracy, I think. It's noisy, it's vibrant, people have opinions. You have to steer it in a particular direction. So sometimes it is tough. In the end, the challenge for us is computing needs to evolve at a very fast pace. You saw Apple's announcements last week. So we have to keep a pace and drive. In many ways, we are leading the way on computing. Sometimes we have to follow and adapt. And how do you do that with a large open system? It's so many partners.
Right.
So it's not like we value the diversity. We want it. We want that choice. That's how innovation happens. But at the same time, you have to steer this thing in a particular direction. Right. So it's a balancing act which we try to do.
Got it. And now how about Chrome? Where do you see Chrome headed? And the larger question than Chrome even is where do you see desktop and web headed, right?
Yeah.
And where do they, mobile centric and mobile first world? What's the future for that?
Mobile is big, and so it's a big trend. Almost all the internet growth in India is purely coming from mobile, and so in terms of where do I see, for me, mobile is just the evolution of computing. And so I see a role for both Android and Chrome within the context of mobile. We are investing a lot on Chrome on Android as well. And, we've literally seen a lot of growth there as well. And it's important to understand things in computing evolve pretty rapidly. So when I look at the potential for web within mobile, I just think we have barely scratched the surface. And so I think the web within mobile will come up in many, many interesting ways over time.
So you think we'll be developing for HTML7 and 8?
Look, there are things which the web does which is very hard for anything else to do. And if I were to fast forward many years from now, I think we will have something, we won't see things as balkanized as web applications and native mobile applications. We'll have something much more of a hybrid thing, and it'll evolve pretty rapidly from where we are today.
All right. Talking applications, what's your view there? It seems, again, very noisy in some sense. Discovery seems hard, and it's a little bit of the democratization, right, of the development environments, the ability to get into app stores.
Yeah.
There seem to be even multiple app stores.
It's a good question. I think, when I look at where phones are, I think we've made a lot of progress. But the user interface, I think, still, beyond a certain number of applications, it's hard for users to get used to them. So the mental model, I think, needs to evolve. And so in some ways, I think there's a huge opportunity there. It reminds me of the early days of the web, where you had a concept of a directory, and you had a catalog of all the web pages, till something like Google came along. Similarly, I think mobile will go through a healthy evolution by which you have a set of applications. They're all icons on your phone. You click and go to them. But over time, this interface will change. We do that today. On phones, for example, when we put Google Now and Google Search, it's another way to start consuming the information on your phone. Google now starts pushing information to you, so you surface the right information at the right time, and some of it is residing within your applications, but it's a different interface to computing. And so I think a combination of voice, pushing things to you like Google Now, will start changing how this model works, and I think we'll go through an evolution there.
So you think we'll evolve away from the app stores of today, explicit downloads and things like that?
The good thing about technology is the only constant is change. So of course, we will evolve away from all this. When I look at things like wearables, the I/O constraints of wearables, you're not going to, I don't think the world will work where on a watch, you're moving it around, choosing the application you want and using that application, just the model starts breaking down. So I think when you start thinking about things like that, or you can imagine walking into your home, you have computing screens around you, you don't want to, in front of your TV, find the application you want and use that application. You're going to speak to it one day, and you're not going to say, open this particular application and do something for me. You will, as users, you'll be natural. You'll talk about things you want to do, and so computing needs to evolve to accommodate those things.
Got it. So if you're an entrepreneur today, how do you build for that tomorrow? Is there any opportunity? What tips might you have?
I think a lot of, I'm inspired by the kind of applications I'm beginning to see. I think India is a unique opportunity because it's, you have a chance, just like China has, the local market is so large and growing at such a large pace. You can develop solutions for India and then evolve beyond that. You may not even need to evolve in the sense the market is big enough. You see this in China today. We clearly see a path to 500 million internet users in India. That scale is incredible. So I think for me the big opportunity is how do you come with solutions for those people based on mobile. And I think that's still, doing it in India well for many problems Indian users face. I think it's an incredible opportunity.
All right. And you'll introduce a few Indic languages as well today in Android One.
Yeah, we've always been invested in making our products work in as many languages as possible. Historically, Hindi has been a focus for us, but we are evolving with Android L. We are adding support for six new Indic languages, and so trying to reach the rest of India is a big goal for us, and we hope for developers here to create as wide a platform and a playing field as possible, so that you can think big and solve big problems.
As you look across the mobile landscape, which other companies do you admire, wish to emulate, wish to compete better with, as you look across the global landscape?
There are quite a few companies I admire, and they're the usual names people here will know because they like Google have, take a long-term view. Companies like Apple, like Amazon, like Facebook, these are Microsoft. these are companies which take a very, very long-term view and invest for the long run. And so you can see it, for example, in the work around drones and and internet connectivity. You can see that all these companies invest for the very, very long term. So we definitely I admire all these companies, but at the same time with the realization that what we are doing is actually very different from all of them. In the end, we do overlap in the market at certain spots. We compete, but when I think about Android and where we need to evolve Android, what we're doing with Android is quite unique. Take the example of Android One, which we launched today. It's not clear to me that I should think about what Apple is doing or Microsoft is doing or Amazon is doing in the context of what we are trying to accomplish with Android One. So in many ways, we have a vision of where we want to evolve computing, and we push forward on it a lot with a long-term view in mind. But at the same time, these are amazing companies, and it's good for all of us. I think in some ways, this journey of computing to me and getting access to people is much larger than all of us. I mean, no one really cares 50 years from now whether Google did it or Apple did it, as long as we do it. And and so I think that's the larger point here. So.
Got it. And so now tell us a little bit about the whole IoT thing and the sensor fabric that is being formed, right? And all the ambient knowledge that comes with us as we go around everywhere. So, well, where do you see that headed, and how do is that just a larger mobile play in the larger context of things?
The right way to think about it is, computing is going to play an increasing role in our lives. So it will deliver a lot of value, and so people will demand more access to it in all kinds of contexts. You're seeing it in many, many subtle places, and you probably don't notice this change. For those of you familiar with Nest in the US, you deal with the Nest thermostat, you're essentially dealing with software changing how, what was a traditional hardware product. You can take a car like a Tesla. On one way to think about Tesla is it's an electric car, which it is. But another way to think about it is, if you drive a Tesla, you look at the central dashboard. There is a OS running in it. It gets software updates, and most of what it's doing is, and it's continuously improving. So it's another example of software and computing changing something which you've traditionally done, which is just driving cars around. So what the way I think about it is, computing increasingly will go to places where you are, and in that context, and will serve users. And so in that context, today there is a computer which you pick and use. It happens to be a smartphone for most people, but over time it'll be there in context where you want it to be. It'll be true of your home. Home. Sometimes I joke around and say, a lot of times people underestimate how expensive glass is at your home. The cost of glass versus displays isn't that different. You can so totally imagine a future in which a lot of places where you have glass in your home might as well be computing screens. And they can still be transparent, so you can look out, or if the weather is bad, maybe you change and actually look at something nice outside. So all this is possible. So for us, this will take time to happen, of course. We are in early days. But for us, it's important, how do we create this model where for users, it's natural, it's intuitive, and they actually do meaningful things for users back. You're seeing this with wearables now. That's the first area where a lot of us are investing in. Even with wearables, if you look at an area like health, I think there's a huge opportunity for how it really changes how we deal with our health. Most of us probably go to a doctor once every 2 years, and you get a one-time measurement of your blood pressure and your heart rate, etc. Really doesn't make sense. Your body is very dynamic. It's constantly changing. So things like wearables will change the way all this works in the next few years. So every area I look at, I see huge opportunity ahead, and we're very excited by it.
Got it. So, from the Google context, you've been there now 10 years. Well, what do you think Google will look like 10 years from now? Is it a very different company than it is today? Will it be more hardware-centric, more hardware-oriented?
I hope it is very different. My hope is that it's very different, that we are doing many more things. We are solving the needs of the future. But underlying it, I think is a common goal we have. It's a common approach we have, which is how do we use technology to work on very, very ambitious projects which have impacts on people. So I think that part won't change, but that will lead us to many, many new areas, right? So, when you look at things like we are doing like self-driving cars or our investment in Project Loon, these are all radically new areas for us. And so, hopefully, we've done well in those areas and the company looks a lot different.
Got it. So we'll open it up to some questions from the audience, and we've got a few mics that are coming around. If there are questions, please just raise your hand and I'll try and point out. In the meantime, Sundar, we sent out a little bit of social media requests and asked for questions. So I will ping you with a couple of questions from around India that have come in to us. One related to, will Chrome get merged with Android in some sense? Why two platforms? Will you assure me that my Chrome or app just runs seamlessly in Android and all Android devices? Because I think some developers are feeling some pain in having to decide in an under-resourced startup, let's say.
Oh, absolutely. Today we are investing a lot in both platforms. We don't want to drive convergence for convergence sake. We are organically letting them, get closer and closer together. My sense is if we had converged, we wouldn't arrive at products like Chromecast, which took a unique approach based on the web to solve these problems. But wherever it makes sense, we bring them together. Just last week, we announced Android apps running in Chrome, in Chromebooks. So those are examples of the kind of stuff we are doing. With the L release, you will see us do a lot of work to bring the browser, Chrome, in Android, much more integrated with the OS. So we are doing those kinds of stuff, but it'll be more organic and driven by user needs than a mandate to converge the two platforms.
Correct. With the questions, we have one back there.
Hi, my name is Gaurav. I am from R-Corp. So we basically develop we have a platform to develop technology for enterprises. So I just wanted your view on the usage of mobile for enterprises, both within India and in the world, because when we look at those numbers, basically we're talking about more of consumers getting onto Android and mobile devices rather than laptops. So what is your view of enterprise? How is it in this mobile space? Are enterprises going to adopt it soon, or what's like the landscape?
I think they have to. I think, the lines increasingly blur over time. So I don't think there is a luxury of not adopting. In the PC world, we succeeded in segmenting these use cases, and these were two diverse worlds for a long time. I think in mobile, that model starts breaking down. It's hard for you to carry two phones around, and so most people will demand their corporate experience on their personal phones and vice versa. So we see this beginning to happen in the US. The BYOD market has been strong, and we are seeing a lot of growth both for iOS and Android in the enterprise. So mobile in the enterprise is well underway. We are investing a lot for Android for work. We had some early announcements around at I/O, but in a few months we'll formally roll out the program, just like we announced Android One today. And so we are bringing a big effort with a set of partners to bring Android to the enterprise. And I think once we do that, it'll really set the stage for massive changes there. But enterprises historically take time to change, so you just see the shift happen at slow motion. Whatever is happening in the consumer side will happen in the enterprise side as well. It just plays out over longer time periods.
And in the industrial area too, do you see Android being embedded in a whole bunch of industrial equipment as well?
I mean, I run into use cases around Android. I just, always fascinates me. And people are using it for all kinds of things, yeah.
Got it.
Hi Sundar, my name is Rohan Malhotra. I run InvestoPad, which is an incubator for early stage tech startups. It's great to see Google supporting initiatives like Android One and tying up with OEMs. But the big question I have here is about data adoption for the masses, because what is Google doing with the telecoms, for example, to try and curb expensive data and data adoption in rural parts of this country?
Yeah, I think there's both a set of you saw with Android One, we announced we've been working hard with Airtel, and I think they're announcing something creative. It's an interesting step. For those of you who don't know, Airtel today announced for Android One subscribers, they will provide free over-the-air updates to the device. And for 6 months, they provide 200 megs per month for free for you to download applications. We announced YouTube offline, which is coming up in the next few months, so that you can choose your favorite videos, download them, and cache them on your device so that they're available to you offline, right? So we're beginning to come at it a few different ways like this, and I think hopefully our hope is that other carriers follow with their own creative ideas, etc. And I think all that will help. There is a potential in India to leapfrog with 4G, and there are obviously people with massive plans around that. That's exciting for me to see. Over time, when we are doing things like Project Loon, I think there could be solutions for rural areas in India which get left out on connectivity. But those are longer term things. So we are approaching it a few different ways, but there are a few more ideas we have. Probably not the right forum to talk about it today. But I think it's an important problem. It's a tough problem, but I think solving it is key to making all this work.
Got one question.
Hi, my name is Sumit and I work for EmployeeWise. We are a hire-to-retire cloud-based solution. You talked about the different platforms you have on the OS side, but similarly you have 3 different marketplaces. You have the Play Store for Android, you have the Chrome marketplace, which is emerging, and you have the old business apps marketplace. What's the strategy? Because sometimes on the business apps marketplace, it now kind of sends you to the Chrome marketplace where you can't do really what you want. So, I mean, is there a thought around where they're headed?
We definitely the 2 main areas we are focusing is around the Google Play Store and the Chrome Web Store, right? And so those are our 2 big areas of investments. And so over time, I would expect what we are doing in the business apps marketplace all to get folded within. But I think that's an evolution we need to drive. And
any idea of the time frame?
Not quite, but I would say within a year or so.
We'll take one last question. There's one. Go ahead.
Hi Sundar, I'm Anirudh Suri. I run a startup and also invest in startups, early stage. My question is actually about, I think you're starting to hint at it now, the mobile consumer, right? Can you just from your perspective, based on what you have seen, just share a few nuggets of what you think the mobile consumer looks like today and how he's different from the web consumer, right? And what are those sort of key sort of pillars that every mobile first startup, or most mobile startups should be thinking, okay, this is what my mobile consumer is doing differently?
When I look at it, a lot of it is about simplicity, I think. Mobile has a lot of constraints from an I/O standpoint. And so, you want to distill. Mobile forces you to distill your, application to what really matters most. I think that, whereas in the web, you had a chance to be, all and be all for many, many things. So I think when you think about mobile first, you have to really arrive at the essence of what your application is for users. And in the US, we talk about it as the great unbundling that mobile is driving to, which is why even stuff which on the web, for example, on the web we could have had Gmail and Hangouts within Gmail, or Facebook had a bunch of things built within their Facebook application. But when you go to mobile, people are in this immersive single use cases. So in some ways, I call this as like you have to distill what is it that you're trying to do for users, because mobile is people are using it on their go. Their attention span is pretty limited. When they open your application, they're expecting something very specific. And so understanding that value proposition and distilling it and delivering that is a lot of where you achieve that success. And so, and somebody like Uber does it very, very well, right? When I open Uber, I have this very clear purpose for which I'm opening Uber, and they deliver that value against that. And so I think that's an example of what mobile is. WhatsApp does it well, right? They have a very clear purpose of what you're trying to do with that app, and they've been very, very focused on that. And so, that's been the story of mobile. And, I think it'll evolve from there, but where we are today is having that, clear goal of what you're trying to do for consumers and removing everything else. The rest is a distraction. And so arriving at that answer for users.
Great. So thank you very much, Sundar, for taking time out of your very busy schedule today. On behalf of 10,000 Startups, which is actually, as I told you earlier, a program that's supported by Google for Entrepreneurs and has done incredibly well over the last 5 quarters here in India in terms of the interest in the nurturing of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So thank you for spending time with us today, and welcome to India again. And we have a small memento that I'd request Mr. Chandrasekhar to come up and present to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
And thanks a lot for all that Google has done for the 10,000 startups.
It's very, very exciting to be here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, thanks.